How's it going, everybody? Welcome to episode 29 of the Apples and Genos Fantasy Hockey Podcast. We're back with the midweek edition. I'm Josh Hutchinson, and fresh off a Dallas Stars loss at the hand of Eric Shalgren and the Leafs, it's John Binkle. How you feeling, Binksy?
Shalgren. Nice. Josh, I'm alive and kicking, my friend. It's been a trying last week with changes in management at my job, creating what experts call a toxic work environment. I'm always happy to be here with you, though, and especially this week, I could not be more excited to relax and talk hockey.
Hey man, I know all about toxic work environments, so I can definitely empathize with you there. We got a third voice this week. It's Nate Groot Niblink. How you doing, buddy?
I'm doing good. Yeah, I'm pumped. It's been a while since I could join you guys, so yeah, I'm happy to be here. Happy to talk some more hockey tonight.
How are those surveys going, man?
Surveys are great. Yeah, this is really good stuff. For anybody who doesn't know, posted some surveys in the Discord server. One for the patrons and one for the general Discord population. Been getting really great feedback. Really appreciate it from everyone who's taken the time to fill out the survey and kind of let me know what you're interested in, what's working, what's not, what you want to see for next year. So it's been really helpful, and I'll definitely be incorporating a lot of those ideas moving forward.
Awesome. Well, shout outs again to the band There for our intro and outro music for the podcast. There's a link to their Spotify page in the description of the audio feeds. And if you could just take a moment and leave us a review on Spotify or Apple Podcasts or both. It's great to hear your feedback, and it helps the pod reach more people. We're also on YouTube. We're streaming live right now, and there'll be a video archived on the YouTube channel that you can watch at your leisure. Also, if you want to support Apples and Genos, check out our Patreon at patreon.com/applesgenos. Each monthly tier includes exclusive perks, including extra waiver wire articles, monthly fantasy team assessments from Nate himself, and stat card requests from TJ Stats. Let's talk about some must-make moves. How's that sound?
Let's do it.
Let's do it. Okay. So must-make moves is where we pick 4 different players that we're either going to add or drop. So, John, who are you adding this week?
Guys, I'll take Val Nichushkin here as my ad this week. With Gabe down for at least the regular season after the knee surgery that kneecapped my fantasy season, there's an opportunity to be had in Colorado. Nichushkin has been boosted to line 1 and power play 1 and has taken advantage already, pacing over 20 minutes per night in both games and scoring a power play point and power point assist in the most recent game with the Kings. So he's set to breeze through his career best point total, which is all the way back in 2013 as an 18-year-old here in Dallas. And with this opportunity, a 62-point pace is worthwhile anyway. But with this recent news, you should be auto-adding. I was a bit worried about Burakovsky being the one to benefit from this, and obviously it's still possible. But the way that it's looking right now in Colorado, Nichushkin is the one to go with. What do you think?
Yeah, I think just deployment alone is enough to give him a shot for sure. And it looks like I think putting anyone with McKinnon and Rantanen, you're gonna have success. So, but Nichushkin's been pretty good regardless this year, and it looks like even through that first game, he's found success on the top line as well. So yeah, I support that for sure.
Yeah, I'm a third voice in favor. I wrote about Nichushkin for the website on Monday, and all in favor as long as he's getting this deployment, line 1, power play 1 on a juggernaut like Colorado. He's a good player. I don't think he's an exceptional player. He's having a good season. His advanced numbers have taken a step this year as well. He's doing more with the extra ice that he's been afforded. So it's kind of all systems go for Nichushkin. Next week, he's got a fantastic schedule. Colorado plays, I believe it's Monday, Wednesday, Friday, Sunday, which is just about as good a schedule as you can get for streaming. So, yeah, go ahead, grab him now because he's not going to be there next week.
John, who are you dropping?
So I've got to be the wet blanket on the Blackhawks party and submit for y'all's consideration dropping Dylan Strome. I think we all know he's been extremely productive over the last 7 games, even outpacing DeBrincat and nearly outpacing Taves. The problem is that even though he's up above a point per game, he's doing it shooting over 33%, and 7 of his 11 points are coming from goals. So even though he's working with the aforementioned pair on line one and power play one, and doing so with an above 20 minutes average time on ice over that period, it just isn't sustainable production for a third wheel in a broken machine. Clearly, this has been like the period of terrible teams just blowing teams out of the water. But I think that may be more having to do with good teams kind of coasting towards the playoffs a little bit at this point. And obviously he's been playing really well, but I watched the game against Boston to see if his fall off a cliff in the seventh game was indicative of anything, and it sure was. He was getting pushed around. He was not effective sitting in front of the net on the power play. He whiffed on a couple of shots. His passes were not there. I think if you rode the wave, it's time to bail. And the schedule only gets worse for them. So if you're looking at him and thinking, is this the Clayton Keller of the next month? It really isn't. It's not there.
Yeah, there's a lot of PDO benders going on at the bottom of the league right now, Chicago included. I've never been a big Dylan Strome guy. His shooting percentage over this hot streak is ridiculously high, as is the same with a lot of the players in the Blackhawks right now. So yeah, I'm with you. I don't think he's worth holding on to.
Yeah, for myself, I'll at least throw a little bit of a dissenting opinion out there. I don't think Strome is like suddenly become an elite player, but his advanced stats have been pretty good. He's kind of worked in a couple of stinkers around some good play, so just going off his individual scoring chances for across his last 6 games. So you got 6, 4, 5, 1, 4, and 0 in that Boston game. So it's kind of up and down a little bit, especially the last 4 games. I'm holding him at the moment. The deployment is obviously perfect. He's there with DeBrincat and Kane. He's going to fall ass backwards into some points just by virtue of playing with those two guys. So I don't mind waiting a little bit. He's got a Saturday, Sunday at the end of this week that I might hold him through. And then I'd see how those 2 games go before I make any long-term decisions. You are right about the long-term schedule, so that's something to keep in mind. But he has been legitimately playing well. Whether or not he can keep that up, we've never seen him keep it up for longer than a few games at a time. So I am obviously still watching him very closely and have my reservations long-term. But at the moment, I'd hold him for a little longer.
All right. Well, I am adding this is an interesting ad because he was actually a drop for me earlier in the year when he went very cold. But it's Oliver Bjorkstrand from Columbus. He's a point per game over 17 games since the start of February. Through that time, since the beginning of March, he's 15th in the league in individual scoring chances for per 60 with 14.56. His time on ice has increased in March, likely due to the plethora of injuries in Columbus. He's still on line 2, but he's on power play 1. But he's pretty highly available. He's only 51% rostered. So I would be going to check if he's available. He's red hot right now, and yeah, that's pretty much all I have to say about him. What do you guys think?
I think the opportunity is definitely there with the slew of injuries. If he's not available in your league, Nyquist is another option to look at, actually playing on line 1 on the wing. So I think there's opportunity there. How much opportunity is really available in Columbus with Jenner gone? I don't know that there's a really high ceiling. But clearly he's been playing very well. So if it's fitting to your roster, I think you should go for it.
Yeah, I like Bjorkstrand. It was very puzzling to me when his play just kind of fell off a cliff for a long stretch there. I'm glad to see he's back to what I assumed he could be and would be. Yeah, the last few games he's been pretty dominant. He's averaging like maybe just eyeballing it here over his last few game logs, but it looks like he's above 4 individual scoring chances for per game, which is pretty solid stuff. Do obviously have the same questions about whether he can sustain this given the injuries that the Jackets are going through, but he's getting the deployment, like he's seeing 20 plus minutes in a few games recently, 19, 18, big numbers for sure. So yeah, I'm definitely in. 51% rostered. If he's there, I think he's definitely worth a pickup. Do keep in mind, next couple of weeks, the Jackets only have 3 games in each week and only 1 off night across those 2 weeks. So weigh your options, but there's not many players hotter than Bjorkstrand right now.
All right, and my drop here is a huge disappointment this year. It's Joel Farabee from Philadelphia. He plays on line 2 and power play 2 and has pretty high time on ice over the season, over 17 minutes a game. But in March, he is 513th in the league in individual scoring chances for per 60 with 2.88. He's 482nd in the league in individual shot attempts per 60 with 8.15. And he's 438th in shots per 60 with 4.79. He does have 4 assists in 7 games over this span, but he's been quite a disappointment this year. He had 20 goals in 55 games last year and had kind of solidified himself in the top 6 forward group. I mean, the Flyers have struggled offensively all year just as a group. But Farabee in particular has been quite a disappointment. He was drafted in late rounds in 30% of Yahoo leagues. So he was a pretty popular pick, even if it was just as a lower end streaming option. But I don't think he's even rosterable, or like he's even worth rostering it at all right now. So I would be dropping Joel Farabee. He's only rostered in about 17% of leagues, but I think it probably should be even lower than that.
I was one of those people that drafted him in the later rounds, expecting a major hike after last year. After watching the first 3-4 weeks of the season and seeing just how bad the Flyers were altogether, and he himself being a major part of that non-success, I went and moved him in a package early in the season when there was still, the chances for that return. But I, like you said, I continually check on him because, you would think with his talent level, you would be able to pick up some sort of value, but it just isn't there. If he is on your team, you really should be dropping him in a long time ago, I think.
Yep. Same from me. Most of his points for the last month plus came in 1 game, 3 assist game against Chicago. His last 10 games, he's only had 1 game with more than 2 individual scoring chances for. Yeah, this guy is pretty much dead to me, so drop it. Wonder if Philadelphia still wants to pay him $5 million a year for the next 6 years.
Oh wow, yeah, not pretty at all. I mean, they still want to pay Rasmus Ristolainen.
I was going to say they've elected to pay Rasmus, so I don't know. That's what they're doing with their rebuild.
Cliff Fletcher has weird standards, I would say. Let's move on to Stream Save Sucks. So, as per usual, that's the game that we like to play, where we pick a percent rostership in Yahoo, and we pick 3 players that are hovering around that percentage rostership. And we decide that compared to each other, which one we're going to stream, which one we're going to save, and which one sucks, or which one we're going to drop. So what are we looking at this week, John?
So, guys, what do you say to doing goalies in our Triple S this week? 93% puts us with Robin Necktat Slaner, Jack Soup, and the forever ageless Flower. I think it's a good 3, and with the up and slope and down slope of their seasons and careers, I think it's a good one to work through. What do you think?
Sounds good.
You want to fire it off?
Yeah, it's an interesting comparison. I mean, Campbell and Leonard have both not been great. Campbell's hurt right now, but and maybe I don't know. He's had a rib injury. We don't know how long that's been hampering him. So you almost wonder if that is maybe part of the reason that he was struggling. I have a bit of wishful thinking right now. I'm hoping that he'll come back and be great. So for me, Fleury is clearly the best goalie of the 3. Leonard, I think there were high expectations at the start of the year. He struggled, and Vegas has just struggled in general. It's tough. I think my save is probably Campbell. And that's just based on hoping that he returns to form and playing on probably the best team of the three. My stream is Fleury, and my drop right now is Leonard because I just think Vegas is spiraling right now.
Yeah, I'm going to be in the exact same lane as you here. Laner sucks. Their team sucks. He is clearly more hurt than Campbell is. Whatever is actually going on with him, he's been sent back to Vegas and been hobbled, and they're saying it's sooner rather than later, but it clearly isn't. The team in front of Campbell is much better, just by leagues in both of these cases. So my favorite to this day, definitely Flower. I've loved watching him just as a goalie over the years, and he was truly impressive against the Bruins when he was just taking a barrage. I think it was 45 shots total, so and just barely snuck out losing that game. Says quite a bit about him as a goalie to even keep them competitive with the way the Blackhawks play for the most part. So Laner sucks. I'm going to stream Campbell Soup just based on the injury issues. And I'm going to save Flower because I'm really hoping as we update through this trade deadline that he goes somewhere and gets to actually be a top-tier goalie again this season.
Yeah, it's a tough one. So Leonard's going on injured reserve, and like really no clear idea of what's going to happen with him with the rest of the season even. I don't know. You expect that it wouldn't be anything too crazy, but if there's something that lasts even, like if he tries to come back too early or something and it lasts, then that would be concerning. What's interesting is that Vegas is actually fourth in Corsi against, 5v5 Corsi against per 60 over the last 3 weeks, which
Yikes.
You wouldn't expect given, fourth best.
Oh, fourth best. Okay.
Yeah, it's pretty remarkable. Yeah.
That's crazy.
I was shocked. I just pulled it up right now because I was interested to see how the teams were doing. And I was pretty shocked. Vegas is fourth best. They're killing the Corsi numbers, just not actually really turning into anything.
They're not scoring. Yeah.
Yeah. So
okay.
There is something to be said for that. It seems like maybe they're figuring some things out and maybe just having some bad luck. I think the Leafs are long-term the most stable of the teams that we're dealing with here.
That's tough for a Leafs fan to say.
It is tough to say. It was tough for me to get out. I had to swallow twice and let it slide. But and then obviously Flower, I would say, is clearly the best goalie here, but on the worst team.
He's on the worst team. Yeah.
Yeah. So I am gonna go with Campbell as my save. I'm gonna stream Fleury, and I'm gonna say Leonard sucks.
You guys are a couple of homers. Terrible.
That's what I'm gonna go with. I don't feel confident in it. I always say, please don't ask me to try to predict goalie performance. Yeah. I'd rather just not do it. But
yeah, goalies are voodoo. Goalies suck, man.
If you're putting a gun to my head, that's what I'll go with.
Yeah, they all suck. That's the only true answer. All right, so instead of iTest Corner this week, we're gonna talk about some trades, seeing as we're getting close to the trade deadline and some moves are starting to happen. So let's just go through what's going on. So as we started the podcast, there were a couple trades that broke. One of them was Ben Sherratt to the Florida Panthers in exchange for Tyler Smilanic, a first-round pick in 2023 and a fourth-round pick in 2022. What do you guys think of Ben Sherratt? Is he relevant?
Well, I considered him as my ad this week, just considering the stretch of play recently for him. But I was worried about the trade deadline and him going to a place where that value floor kind of fell out. In a Bangers league, obviously a little bit more valuable than just a standard league. But going to the Panthers, I think that kind of relegates him to less time, certainly less opportunity with the puck. I think it kind of takes, even in a Bangers category league, it takes all of the value straight out of him.
I 100% agree with that. I think he's probably playing third pair minutes and
that's great for them,
which is you know what, is exactly where he should be, to be honest.
Yeah.
On a good team.
For the actual Panthers, the team, that's great for them going down the stretch and into the playoffs. That's a great move for them.
Yep.
Although I feel like they paid quite a bit. That's just me.
That's too much for Sherratt.
It seems like it.
Yeah, it feels like too much for Sherratt, but totally agree. He's pretty much dead for fantasy at this point. He's kind of a volume guy even for the bangers. So if he's not going to get that volume, if he's not going to see that 20-plus minutes, which I can't imagine he will with the Panthers, then
no chance.
I think he's pretty much done.
It's weird because it feels like a buyer's market, like that you would have to pay for that much because there's so many people available right now. I don't know. It just seems crazy to me that you'd have to pay that much for Sherratt. But there was a narrative out there that he was worth a first-round pick for basically the entire season. So
I heard that they were holding out for a first and they were just going to die on that hill. So
yeah,
not all that surprising that they got it from a cup contender.
Yeah, I suppose. All right, let's look at. There's another one that just broke. The Calgary Flames got Calle Järnkrok in exchange for a 2022 second. And a 2023 third, a 2024 seventh. What do you guys think of Calle Järnkrok?
Nothing.
Yeah,
I don't.
Yeah,
I would agree.
Yeah, to me, he's kind of like budget Blake Coleman. So if you've liked what Blake Coleman has done for you this fantasy season, then take about 70% of that, and that's what you're going to get out of Calle Järnkrok.
And there's a possibility he plays with Blake Coleman, so...
Yeah, I think again, it's a good move for the Flames. They're bolstering their third line there. I think it makes sense for them. I just don't think there's going to be anything here for fantasy. Järnkrok did have a recent stretch where he played pretty well and got some big minutes with the Kraken, but that's a thing of the past now going to the Flames, I think.
Yeah, absolutely. So the other was this yesterday or today? I guess this was today. The New York Rangers acquired Frank Vatrano from Florida in exchange for the later selection of either the Rangers' own 4th round pick in 2022 or the Jets' own 4th round pick in 2022 as well. So Vatrano for a 4th, essentially. What do you guys think of that one?
I am seriously interested to see what the eyes emoji from Nate means about this. How far do you think this is going to go for them, bro?
I'm pretty interested in Vatrano. Over his career, he's kind of always been this like less than 15 minutes a game player who always has great rate stats. He's always hovering around that 10 shots per 60 mark that I like to see. And he's got individual scoring chances 4 per 60. That's in a good range, not a great range. He's not like exploding off the stat sheet, I guess you would say. But he's also kind of never been given an opportunity to really take off on a top 6 role. And I think a guy like him, a volume shooter like this, could be a good fit with a guy like Panarin. So if he gets that role with Panarin and Ryan Strome on that line, which I think is a real distinct possibility, I think he'd be a smash in that spot. I do think he'd be worth a fair bit. He'd be a great streamer. So I'm pretty interested at least to see the first practice line, see where they're thinking of slotting him in, and then make my moves according to that.
Do you also see any fallout value coming from Florida?
From Florida?
Yeah, I mean, in Florida, is there any increased value because of his absence?
Oh, because he disappears? Probably not. To be honest, I think he's playing low enough in the lineup that it doesn't really make a huge difference. Unless, I mean, Owen Tippett may slot in as he's kind of a fringe guy, but in terms of relevancy for fantasy, I don't think it really makes a huge difference. They're so deep offensively.
The only one that even occurred to me was Lundell, and that's probably fringe at best. So
true, yeah. Let's there were a couple more here. Oh yeah, the Minnesota Wild acquired Tyson Jost from the Avalanche in exchange for Nico Sturm. What do you guys think of those guys?
I don't think that there's a possibility this has value effects in either city. I think it's pretty much moot.
Yeah, it's a depth play. I think just two teams that wanted two different things from that slot in their lineup. I don't think either of these guys in all but the very deepest of leagues would have any relevance.
Yeah, when I tweeted this earlier today, but when I was researching drops, I noticed that Tyson Jost was one of the worst forwards in terms of race stats over the last few weeks. That doesn't necessarily mean he's a bad player. I think he was not getting a very good opportunity in Colorado, and probably won't. So that that definitely factors in. But yeah, again, I don't think this is really relevant in terms of fantasy. So
yeah, I mean, if you tell me he's gonna suddenly center Fiala and Boldy, then sure, I'm a little more interested. But
yeah, you're absolutely right. Which I mean, that could be a possibility. Like I don't know. Freddie Gaudreau is playing all right
He's
now.
playing pretty well with them.
But
yeah, it's just something I don't anticipate. But if you told me that was going to happen,
in terms of center depth, like I think there could be an opportunity there at some point, but maybe not right away.
Yep.
And the last one we have here is Colorado acquired Josh Manson from the Ducks in exchange for defenseman Drew Hellison and a second-round pick in 2023. What do you guys think of Manson?
I think it's a great move for Colorado, the actual team. They've got a lot of unknowns with their blue liners right now. So I think the actual move for them is great. I don't think Manson moves the needle fantasy-wise really in any format, and definitely not as they move closer to crunch time and they really kind of try and fine-tune their top two pairs. So
I think in Bangers Cats leagues, he is fairly relevant. I've used him as a streamer a couple times this year, and he's done pretty well for me in terms of hits and blocks. I think he actually had 10 hits in his first game with Colorado.
Right, yeah, 10 hits in his first game.
That's pretty crazy. I mean, he's not gonna do that every game, but that's pretty wild. A good first impression for your new teammates, right? That's for sure. Yeah,
show up and lay the wood.
I'm sure that's what he was thinking. He was a little hyped up to join the new team and join a Stanley Cup contender.
Join a contender. Yeah,
after wasting away in Anaheim. But
yeah, good for him. That's a good move.
He's like, I've been on the trade block for like 4 years in a row. Oh man,
things are finally turning up, Manson.
Yeah, exactly. All right, let's move into the mailbag, folks.
It's a full bag this week.
We do have a full bag. Let's jump into it. So, question 1 from Korok. I feel like you wrote in last week. I still don't know how to say that name. But this is a strategy question. So he says, he or she, I guess I'm not really sure. I'm currently going to make the playoffs, and it's possible that with a really good last 3 weeks, I could get into the top 2 and a bye. But if even small things go against me, I really can't. How do veteran/expert folks decide to stop trying to get the bye and instead focus on picking up early players for the first week of the playoffs instead? Is that even a good idea? So what would you guys do in this situation?
I'm going to turn it over to Strategy Man Nate on this one. I want to hear what you have to say first.
Yeah, I think you have to kind of make that honest assessment for yourself. I don't like planning for, 2% outcomes. So if that's what it sounds like it is here, if small things go against him, he's not going to make, or he or she, I should say, not going to make the bye position. It's obviously worth trying to get the bye. You got 3 more weeks. I'd probably try for at least 1 more week and reassess and see how the last 2 weeks are shaping up. But at the same time, I want to be realistic with how I'm approaching it. So, yeah, I guess that's my advice. 1 more week. Take a look before the last 2 weeks. Give yourself an honest assessment. If it's like a 5% chance or less that you're thinking I can really get a bye, then I'm probably calling it at that point and just focusing on that first week of the playoffs instead, if assuming that the playoffs are a lock.
So I had to make this exact same assessment for my own team last week up against the number 1 seed and decided to just punt it. Mathematically, it was really, really short odds for me. And And, you want to hunt that bye. That's an automatic win. Like it's not as minute as it sounds when you just say a bye week. Like that's an automatic win in the playoffs. You're already in the second round. That's huge because anything can happen week to week. Obviously with Landeskog taking a knee surgery. So if it's possible, you have to consider it. But if it's unlikely, then you really, if you're locked for the playoffs, then you've got to make moves to secure your struggle win in the first round and not hope for an automatic first win.
In my opinion, is there's no reason you can't do both. And to do that, you stream and hold Islanders. Okay, let's move on to the next question here. So this one's from Filthy Casual Ben. In a Cats league where the goalie Cats are wins, goals against average, saves, save percentage, and shutouts. I hate that. Would you prioritize volume or quality?
I think the most important distinguishing factor here is that losses are not a category listed. So it's 2 quality categories versus 2 volume categories. And then you throw in the shootouts, and even the best goalies get shootouts, every once in a while at a best clip. So given these options, I'm going to go volume.
This is a tough one because there's so many categories. Like I hate having that many goalie categories. It drives me nuts. I just feel like they're so unpredictable. I typically if there's less goalie categories, I'm definitely going and saves are one of them. I'm going for volume. That's it. You punt save percentage or just hope for the best. And then go for wins and saves. In this case, I mean, shutouts are kind of a wash. Like you can't really predict whether or not you're going to win shutouts. It's kind of just a chance stat. Goals against average. Yeah, I guess you know what? I'd probably still be going for volume, to be honest.
Where loss is a category in here, I would still probably lean quality versus volume. But being that it's not a factor, anything can happen. And the more chances you get, the better opportunity there is. So.
Sure.
Yeah. For me, when you have a situation like this where you have 2 volume versus 2 rate plus the shutouts, which I guess you could say that it's kind of a mix of both, where a quality goalie you would expect to get more shutouts, but you also need to start more games in order to have a better chance at more shutouts. So when I look at this, I'm looking at what's something that's more likely for me to be able to control, and I think that's volume. So if you can get volume, I think volume, you can almost guarantee yourself a win in saves, and then you can set yourself up pretty well where your wins like 60% of the time, and then you're just hoping and basically every week to snag one of the rate stats. So that's kind of how I would approach that. There is some nuance to it if you find yourself in a position where you have a goalie that's part of a 50-50 tandem who's both goalies are playing really well and they're both doing well in those starts. If you want to kind of play to your league minimums, play to those 3 games played, you find out early in the week you got a shutout in the first game or something like that, and you want to just play for the percentages that week, then I definitely play to that. If that's how your roster, like the goalies that you're rostering, are shaping up, I think it's definitely worth not locking in to one way versus the other. So stay fluid with it, but all things being equal, I'm trying to control the most controllable stats, and the most controllable stats are the volume stats.
Yeah, I'm with that for sure. Let's go to question 3. The Mark Skinner once again.
Marky.
Who are a few of your playoff targets for weeks 23 to 25? Even a few names likely on the wire would be great. And he put in brackets points league. So, do you guys have any players that stand out for you?
I'm going to be watching players on the Senators, on the Penguins, on St. Louis. Those are the teams, at least in the first couple of weeks, that are in the upper portion of games played. They're in the upper portion of games played in nights where you're going to actually be able to put a streamer down, and they have enough actual like viable depth on those teams that you're going to be able to pick up a player like Evan Rodriguez and take a shot. You're going to be able to pick up a player like Braden Shen and take a shot, or et cetera. Even as far as like Sorelli. If you're actually looking to use waiver wire fodder come playoff time, they're quality teams with quality schedules, and they are at least successful enough as a team that there's success to go around for your waiver wire fodder.
What do you think, Nate?
Yeah, just looking ahead. So for streamers specifically, you're probably more focused on that first week 23, and then you're going to kind of continue to flip through the further you make it into the playoffs. So the best schedules for week 23 would be Arizona, Buffalo, Chicago's pretty good. Edmonton has a good schedule, Rangers, Kraken, and Blues. This is what I'm seeing here. So from the Coyotes, you got like Lawson Krause, Nick Schmaltz, if he cools off the next little bit and somebody drops him again, he might be available by then. Buffalo Sabres, Alex Tuck, Jeff Skinner, Tage Thompson, anybody on that top line if they're available. Those are probably the top guys I'm targeting. I think those guys are pretty solid. And then, yeah, anybody playing with McDavid or Draisaitl that week, you could look at from the Oilers if they go out and make an acquisition, some winger to play with them, and they're widely available. That could also be interesting. You've got the Rangers with 4-2, so Vatrano, as we talked about, if he does get that deployment with Panarin, you could be looking at Vatrano. With the Kraken, it's pretty much just the same old Jaden Schwartz, Jared McCann, Jordan Eberle, guys at the top there. So those are just a few names to throw out that will probably be available for you.
Yeah, I looked at a few guys that are less than 50% rostered on teams with pretty good playoff schedules. So for Minnesota, Matt Boldy's still criminally under rostered. He's at 30%. He's plays in the top six, plays in the top power play. He's a no-brainer for me. Brock Nelson's another guy that doesn't really get a lot of respect. He's like 24% rostered. He's been pretty consistent all year. He's got 24 goals. He's probably the most consistent offensive player on that team this year. Ryan Pulock is a guy. He's a bit of a dark horse streamer. That he's kind of returned to form. He was hurt most of the year, but he's back, and he seems to be playing pretty well and is playing pretty high minutes. Not getting the same power play opportunities now that Noah Dobson has been a complete revelation. But
good for blocks, though.
He's still very relevant. So yeah, I guess Mark, you mentioned it was a points league, so maybe he's not as relevant in that circumstance, but he's not bad either. You mentioned Skinner and Tuck. They're both like between 20 and 25% rostered right now. So these are guys that are probably going to disappear before the playoff schedule starts. So I would be jumping on that soon. And Ivan Barbashev is another guy that's not rostered very much. The St. Louis top 9 is pretty fluid in terms of where these guys are slotted. Barbashev has played down the lineup a little bit more recently, but he could definitely rise up and play on the top line or the second line. They seem to kind of roll the dice and put those top 9 in the Yahtzee cup and just throw them all the time. So he's a guy that I'd keep an eye on too. Let's go on to question 4, and that's from Rhesus Pieces. How should you navigate the NHL trade deadline? Should you be saving ads to jump on players later in the week? I assume he means this week. Or should you continue your normal streaming strategy? What do you think?
For myself, I'm not explicitly like saving ads to think about that kind of stuff. If it comes up and there's some terrific situation then I might jump on it. I would say like 90% of the trade deadline deals end up not working out too well. Half the time, if they do work out well, the guy was already rostered from his previous team. It's not something that he went to a new team and everything changed, and now he's great. Usually, if that does happen, like Sam Bennett last year was kind of an aberration, but a lot of the times it's kind of the opposite. It's where somebody goes from a top team and like maybe a younger guy gets traded for an established star or something like that. And the younger guy goes to the rebuilding team and gets like top line minutes, and all of a sudden he's kind of relevant. So it's usually guys that you'll be able to jump on after they actually show something. I don't think you have to necessarily save ads. I don't think there's anybody that's widely available that's being talked about in the trade market right now that a trade destination would really change a lot for me the way I'm viewing them, and it definitely is not something that I would kind of jeopardize this week's outcome in my matchup to be holding ads to potentially grab someone.
Yeah, that's true for me across the board. I'm playing to win each week pretty much. And like you said, it's not super likely that there's a trade deadline that happens that is, massively going to affect what's going on, that you're going to really, really, truly need that ad. So, ad drop as you normally would.
Yeah, I'm with that. I don't really change my strategy much at all in that circumstance. Question 5 is from TT Tony 19. Thoughts on Francouz the rest of the season?
I was looking at this one, and Francouz had a good run. Now Kemper's been back in, pitched back-to-back shutouts, so you don't expect him to necessarily see a lot of volume. But they'll probably try to keep Kemper fresh as well, so I think Francouz will get a few starts here and there. I don't know, it would have to be a pretty deep league for me to be hanging on to Francouz. It would have to be something where I'm hoping for those rate stats, like we were talking about earlier, where I really need those rate stats. Definitely worth streaming for the one game here or there that he plays. I mean, the guy's got 920 on the season. He plays for Colorado. He's gonna win probably 70% of the games he does start. So definitely worth streaming in for one game. I don't think I'm holding him in all but the very deepest of leagues, though.
I'm exactly in line with that. If you're saying Francouz or another streamer, it's Francouz. If you're saying Francouz and another, opportunity to be a 1A goalie, then you probably got to take the shot on the other 1A goalie. But night to night, Francouz is a great option.
Yeah, I 100% agree. I think he's a spot start and nothing really much more. Question 6, this will be the last question, is from Wenf. How dumb is it to have 2-3 player stacks for the playoffs? They would be Tuck, Thompson, Dahlin, and Perron, Shen, Falk. So, in my opinion, I don't want to say it's dumb. It's a bit of a harsh word, but I personally would shy away from having 3 guys on my team at a time. You run the risk of the team going cold offensively, and just then you have 3 guys that aren't doing shit. So and then in this case with both Buffalo and St. Louis, I just think that there are, in terms of like Justin Falk is a guy, I guess it depends on how deep the league is too. Justin Falk's a guy that I think he's a good streamer. He's not a guy that I'd be holding all the time. So in that circumstance, he's a guy that I might switch out for maybe Ryan Pulock, like I mentioned before, if you need someone on defense. Who does similar things. Falk is a little bit better offensively, but the difference isn't huge. So I try and mix it up a little bit there. Pulock is also very available. He's only like 20% rostered. So that's in that situation. And then with Tuck, Thompson, and Dahlin, I like Tage Thompson. And Dahlin as well. I think Alex Tuck is a guy that you could probably find a comparable player on waivers as well. So what do you guys think? Am I off base on that?
I think you're completely dead on as the actual evaluation of those two sets of three players. As a general strategy, I have to go to the adage here. You're putting all your eggs in one basket and you're going to get cracked in the playoffs. You've got to have 3 straight weeks of nothing going wrong for you. And it's just super unlikely. You've got to diversify your options there. And even in the best places, you can talk Colorado, you can talk Toronto, you can talk Florida, you can talk Carolina. There's only so much to go around. So you really need to take the best opportunity in those places and not all of the opportunity. Otherwise, you're going to have, 1 boom and 2 busts, or it could be even worse. You could get, a game postponed for whatever reason, and then you're absolutely up a creek. So.
Yeah, it's an interesting thought. Part of me wants to just say, embrace the variance because, like, it's the playoffs. Like,
you're a wild child.
You gotta be the best team. So, these guys obviously have good schedules, Buffalo and St. Louis through the playoffs. They're also guys like I would drop any single one of these guys if they got really cold during the playoffs, and I was like, I can't deal with this. So It's not like, I don't think these are like, it's not like you had, like Tarasenko, Kyrou, and then like there's nobody on Buffalo really that's like at that elite star level that you would just like never drop, right?
Or Buffalo.
But if you, well, they used to have one. Now he's just backcracking jokes.
That was awesome.
That was pretty awesome.
I love
that. He was pretty salty, but it was pretty awesome. So yeah, with these 3, it is high variance, 100%. And if things go poorly, they could go poorly pretty fast. So you have to at least be aware of that and be ready to react to that. I don't hate it, but it is high variance. So you kind of have to evaluate your own risk tolerance a little bit with this setup and be ready to pivot if things start to go poorly, like if the Tuck Thompson line, Skinner line gets broken up or something, then that to me would be a huge red flag because those guys are the clear best 3 players on their team. They need to play together for them to have continued relevance. So at that point, maybe you're ready to move on and make some moves. But I don't hate it as much as I thought I would. I'll leave it there.
It's not dumb, but it's definitely very risky.
Yes.
Yeah. I mean, I personally wouldn't do it myself.
I wouldn't either.
But yeah. I think that's it for us tonight, guys. So thank you all for listening. Check out the Apples and Ginos Discord. John, Nate, and myself are in there all the time talking fantasy hockey. Nate is really good at answering questions promptly, so use him as a resource. Also follow us on TikTok at Apples and Ginos, and also on Twitter. John's at Binklemania. I'm at JustJoshin41, and Nate's at Apples Ginos. Guys, do you have anything else to add?
All good.
No.
Yeah, all good.
No stars.
All right. Well, we're signing off then. Have a good one, folks.
Good night, world.